So, back to our catch-22. PG&E used hexavalent chromium, which is carcinogenic. Decades later, it leaked a lot into the Hinckley water supply and polluted an entire town. In Flint, Michigan, just recently, to save money, the city switched to an old water supply that they owned instead of purchasing the water from somewhere else. They do not put the correct anti-corrosive treatment into the water supply. So, once again, the anti-corrosive leaked and we had an environmental disaster. They do not put the right anti-corrosive treatment into the water supply and we have a disaster. We now have systems that are so complex that we can have disasters if anything goes wrong. We can't just be careful and say, oh, we won't use anti-corrosives. We need the anti-corrosives. Very scary what they put in water supplies to me and then say it's safe to drink. So in Flint, Michigan, to save money, the city switches to Flint River water supply. They don't treat the water supply correctly, and in parts of the city they have old lead pipes that start to corrode when they put this water through it. Those lead pipes' corrosion leads to lead in the water supply. You can tell. I talked with a woman from Flint, Michigan 2 weeks ago. She said, oh, the government might not have known, but we knew. Of course, she was an activist. But she said, we knew the water was brown, and I mean very brown. She said you could instantly tell she said even when they started talking about switching the water, before their water turned brown, they knew it was a bad idea. The Flint River was polluted. They didn't trust the old system. And for 18 months, people did nothing. They didn't test, or if they tested, it was very cursory and at optimal places. For 18 months, without full data, this is the part that bothers me, for 18 months without full testing, both the city of Flint and the EPA said, it's safe. What is your problem? It's just a little brown. It just smells bad, but it's safe. How can you make such a statement when you don't know for sure? I would say something like, tests indicate that it's safe, but these tests are preliminary and we're working on more tests. I would not come out and say it's safe, but then I'm not a politician. People started hiring independent testers who found massive amounts of lead in some neighborhoods and in some isolated houses, dependent upon the pipes and the state of the pipes. So, you do use the corrosives, you're polluting through the corrosives. You don't use the corrosives, you poison an entire city. These are very complex systems, and we don't know as much about them as we should. So what you gonna do? What's the ethical thing to do? We have millions of people. They depend on this water. If we don't get them the right, safe water, they can die. So if anti-corrosion is bad and not using anti-corrosion chemicals is bad, what are you going to do? It is my opinion, and this is true with our computer science as well, that in science, we never know everything. We don't have facts, we have theorems. We have theories that this happens. We may have proof, but we still don't know everything about it. I treat science, computer science, and science in general, physical science, bench sciences, as still suppositions. I write a program, I say, I think it does this, or it's designed to do A, B, and C. I don't say it does A, B, and C, because then I don't think I'm meeting my ethical responsibility of being honest. I'm going to stop here. It says put photo here, but it's a little video. So I'm going to stop this view graph here and show you another small video of the Aral Sea to show you some other economic impacts that a system approach without long-term thinking can affect. But before I pause, I will mention Louisiana since I'm down here in the South again. You probably know that Louisiana loses a football field worth of turf, worth of its soil, every, I think, minute. Louisiana is washing away. It's simply disappearing. The swamplands are gone. We used to have these great mangrove swamps that held the soil in place. They're gone. What happened to Louisiana? Louisiana built levees along the Mississippi River to stop floods. Those levees stopped the floods, but the floods were what built up the land. So there was a balance between floods and erosion, and the balance was in the plus side, and Louisiana was a growing, thriving land 400 or 500 years ago. If you look at the bird's foot of the Mississippi River, that little final outlet into the Gulf of Mexico, you will see that it's growing earth, that the water is spreading out and creating more and more earth. It's a really pretty thing. When they built the levees, do you think they didn't know that they were killing the land? Again, Eads was involved in this. Eads knew everything. That man was stone cold brilliant. But he couldn't convince the powers in charge to look at it a different way. After Hurricane Katrina, I went and looked at damage all across the South. I concluded that what we need is organic engineering. I think we can still do engineering, but it has to be organically. What do I mean by organic engineering? The land has a natural tendency to flood in certain places. We in South Mississippi, in South Louisiana, not in South Mississippi, in South Louisiana, we built canals that cut straight through those natural tendencies, and hence took down all of the land that would have held in a flood. If we had built those canals not to minimize the distance, but to be more consistent with the lay of the land, then we would have avoided a lot of the large storm surge that came into Mississippi, and we would have built with the land instead of against it. The Love Canal that was trying to divert the water to make another smaller waterfall probably would have eventually eroded and made that whole thing, I mean, Niagara Falls, the city would have been gone, and it would have all become part of Niagara Falls because we didn't know enough about how to do that. So organic engineering would recognize the fact that what we do could impact the natural flow of water on the earth and make sure that what we did went in the same direction, not in an opposite direction to cause additional damage.